Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. Today, I will be doing the running back preview. I was thinking about, and I still might do this, but I think I'm just going to end up having it be a car ride rant because I don't necessarily require sharing the screen to communicate what I need to. I'm going to start utilizing the car ride rant as a means for emergency type broadcasts or, in other words, things that have to be shared immediately. And I have no other choice but to record it in the car, or if it's something that doesn't necessarily require sharing the screen and showing you guys other visuals other than myself. But the other topic that I'm going to be talking about in the coming days, maybe even tomorrow, I was thinking about doing it today, is regarding Yossi Epinesa and essentially why Iowa has to land him, why this is a cornerstone for this class, and all the reasons why Iowa needs to land him. And if they don't, kind of what this says about the class. With recruiting, I try not to overreact because it's so volatile. It's so, things can change in a moment's notice. Okay. It's not stagnant. There's many moving pieces. The recruiting process is long. Oftentimes there's guys that will commit before the season and then decommit due to, like we saw with Kendrick Raphael, who was a running back. He was committed to Iowa. He would have been a freshman in Iowa's class last year. I think ultimately it worked out. I really liked the running backs that Iowa landed in Terrell Washington Jr. and Kamari Moulton, which we will discuss in this video, as this is a running backs preview video. This is the positional previews that I have been doing every single year. But of course, he saw Iowa's offense and decided to decommit. Most of the time, I would say that decommits happen to coaching changes or something severe in nature, but it's always changing. It's never stagnant. So I try and steer clear from making sweeping statements about anything, because just because it looks or appears a certain way now doesn't mean that it won't look totally different when it's all said and done. For example, and I'm not going to go too much further into this because, again, I'm going to do it in a separate video. But if Iowa misses Yossi Epinesa, while a big deal, and I'm going to be doing a video on it, theoretically, if they have a particularly good season, they might be able to land him down the line and take him away from whoever initially had his commitment, or they can uncover some other guys, maybe get some other guys not named Yossi Epinesa to decommit and commit to Iowa, as Caleb Johnson did during Iowa's really nice run, I believe, in the COVID year. And taken in, actually, it was the year after the COVID year, taking an official visit to Iowa, and of course committing. He reopened and committed to Iowa. So it's always changing. It's volatile. And so I try not to make sweeping statements, but sometimes you have to just bunker down, say what you got to say, and move forward. All right, guys, let's check out the Iowa running backs room. By the way, guys, if you guys are not subscribed, be sure to smash that subscribe button. I would love for this channel to get to 2,000 subscribers. We are inching closer to that every day, and I thank all of your guys' support for this channel. I do my best to give you guys good content. At the very least, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think, specifically for this video, Iowa's running back room and how it looks. I think down the line, well, let me backtrack. And without further ado, let's get into this. I think down the line, I am going to I saw 247 Sports do it. I saw this in an article for one of the Hawkeye site. I think it was a different article, not 247 Sports. So I saw it 247 Sports in a different Hawkeye publication that ranked the Iowa positional groups. I think I'm going to do that video down the line. It's a fun video, one of those classic off-season, just kind of, since there's not a lot going on, topic. With regards to Iowa's running back room, I think that it's, as far as talent goes, up there with the best of the positional groups for Iowa. For Iowa, there's the groups that are proven, solid, and definitely have talent. There's the groups that have talent but are not necessarily proven. And then there's the groups that have a little bit of talent. There's definitely some, not as much as option B. And they also haven't proven anything. That would, for me, be the quarterback room and probably the offensive line room, wide receiver room. I would put them in that category. Although the offensive line would be closer to the running back room in that they have a lot of guys that have seen plenty of action on the field, but we haven't seen magnificent production on the field or even above average production. Now, when it comes to the offense, outside of the tight end room, you're not going to really see tremendous production at all. Even with the tight end room, it's not as good as it could be. So the running back room, I love the talent that they have. I think Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington Jr. were two extremely good gets late in the process. Like I had told you guys, the running back that they had early in the process was Kendrick Raphael. He ended up committing to NC State mid-season, decommitting to Iowa, and then committing to NC State because of the lackluster performance of Iowa's offense. The first running back that Iowa landed was Kamari Moulton out of the state of Florida, a Liddell Betts get. Liddell Betts is very familiar with the state of Florida, and it makes sense that he would delve into the state of Florida for his running back commit. The second running back commit that Iowa got in last year's class was Terrell Washington Jr., who is committed to Purdue, and is an example of what I have told you guys early in this video on why it's hard to make any sweeping generalizations with anything recruiting related, because it's so volatile. It's ever changing. Terrell Washington Jr. was committed to Purdue, although I had predicted, due to a random Purdue fan that I had come across saying that the boosters knew that Jeff Brom was going to be leaving Purdue for Louisville to go back to Louisville. But by and large, I think that most people were not per se expecting Jeff Brom to step down. At the very least, they had at the very most, they had inclinations. And so Iowa landed, they were able to get Terrell Washington Jr. on campus right before signing day, and they landed him. And both of these guys ended up being year one contributors. You could argue out of talent. I think it was a mixture of both talent and need, as Iowa's running back room was definitely hit by the injury bug, especially with Caleb Johnson and Josiah Patterson. But I really want to highlight the newcomers before we get to the veterans on this roster to bring home my point about the talent that this Iowa running back room has. And both guys did fairly well. I think both guys are all-purpose backs that can be a receiving threat as well as a running threat. I think Kamari Moulton is probably the better pure runner, whereas Terrell Washington Jr. is kind of that mix and match. There's a reason why Purdue wanted him under Jeff Brom, because he does have that dual threat. We have heard reports from Iowa's early camp, fall camp or spring camp or whatever. I've never been good on what comes first, fall, spring, whatever. I've never been good on that. It was after winter, so I guess it would be. Would it be spring? I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I really have never paid attention to the whole seasons thing. We heard from camp, whatever season, that Terrell Washington Jr. was receiving significant reps at the wide receiver position. And of course, Tim Lester is now here, which cannot go overshadowed. Anything having to do with the offense, you have to bring up Tim Lester in the same vein, because hopefully there is change. Hopefully there is improvement on all levels because of Tim Lester's expertise. Now, that's a different matter entirely. And I did a video on a very popular video on the early observations, in which I reviewed an article from one of the Oregon Ducks SB Nation writers, in which they basically said that they did not see very much that was different between Tim Lester's offense and Brian Ferentz, at least early on. But again, these writers are not as familiar with Iowa. They're more familiar with Oregon, so they kind of only see things peripherally. And it is possible that Tim Lester did not want to show very much at the spring game and put too much on tape. And that is totally a reasonable thought. He wanted to keep it as vanilla as possible. In fact, I would say that that's probably a smart thing to do. Now, as a fan, I wish we could have seen a little bit more, just a little bit, just a wee bit, so we can have something to get excited about, get a little excited about, get a little pumped up about. And there was, but I wish there was slightly more. But nonetheless, we heard reports that Terrell Washington Jr. was moving out to the wide receiver position, possibly full time, and he was receiving reps at the wide receiver position. Now, we did also hear that he was still a part of the running back room, and they still had a lot of confidence in him as a running back. But due to the need, especially at springtime, at the wide receiver position due to injuries, it was a good opportunity to get Terrell Washington Jr. out there. Now, me personally, I don't think that Terrell Washington Jr. is a full-time wide receiver. I don't think he has the size. He is very athletic. There's a reason why Purdue wanted him. There's a reason why Iowa wanted him. Okay. But to me, his frame is more akin to the prototypical Iowa running back that we have been accustomed to in the past. And no, I don't necessarily mean a Sean Green. I mean some of the smaller guys, especially during the Ricky Stanzi era. Going to have to pull up some of their names here. A Brandon Weegar comes to mind, that 5'8" to 5'10", more shifty. They have a little bit of power and explosion, but they're not per se a bruising running back, but they can run between the tackles, and they're definitely shifty. I'm trying to find some of the other smaller guys. It was all in that same time period. It was 2008, 2009. Jewel Hampton was one. I'm literally looking at Iowa's roster from this time period. Let's see. Jewel Hampton was one. Adam Robinson. That's who I was thinking of. So Jewel Hampton, Adam Robinson, and Brandon Weegar. Okay. To me, he is more in that stratosphere than a Sean Green or a LaShawn Daniels or somebody of that ilk. Okay. So long term, I think he's better suited as a running back and a guy that can be a Swiss Army knife that Iowa, honestly, similar to a Tyler Goodson, somebody that Iowa really benefited from. Iowa and Akram Wadley. Iowa has always benefited from having guys that have that dual threat capability. And especially if you can match him with a bruising running back, a guy that can ground and pound, it's very helpful. Kamari Moulton has explosion. He's definitely not a pure bruising running back, but he did add some weight. I recently saw the updated Iowa football roster. He's up to 212 pounds, I believe I saw. And even in the pictures that we saw from camp and the spring video, and I made this comment, you could visibly see that he was bigger. And that is very promising. A guy that is able to put on that size in a year and a half of being a part of the program, that shows a willingness to dig deep, put his nose down, grind, and get better. So I really like the true freshmen from last year. I think they have a bright future with one another. We'll see what happens with Terrell Washington Jr. I would not be surprised in the least if he does indeed move out to wide receiver. At this point, how I see it, as opposed to what I think should happen, how I see it is they are getting him reps at wide receiver because there are some packages in which they could utilize moving him outside. He is talented at catching the football, but he is mostly a depth piece as far as him playing wide receiver and a security blanket in case there are injuries. In all honesty, guys, if you look, and obviously I'm going to do a wide receiver preview, but the one thing that Iowa is not missing or lacking is shorter Z's and slot wide receivers. Okay. They are not missing the inside wide receivers. They have an abundance of those guys. In fact, perhaps too many. Iowa has unfortunately swung and missed on some of their bigger bodied wide receivers. They've gone elsewhere, and the rest is history. But bringing this back to the running back position, Iowa, to me, from what I see, it looks like they are utilizing him as a security blanket, but they still see him as a running back, which I also believe, coincidentally, is the best move. Long term, though, would I be surprised if in the end he becomes a full duty wide receiver because of the lack of being able to develop wide receivers? Of course. Notice I didn't say the lack of talent at wide receiver because I have hammered the desk telling you guys that Iowa recruits the wide receiver position just fine. If you look at the recruiting rankings, one could even argue, hell, I even do argue that they outkick their coverage in recruiting the wide receiver position. If you look at the production that the Iowa offense has had, in particular, the wide receiver position, it is a miracle that they are still able to beat out other Big Ten programs and get high 3-star, and even 4-star wide receivers. Alex Mata was literally considered a 4-star wide receiver. So, but that's a separate video. So I would not be surprised if that happens, but all things being equal, examining the running back position heading into this season, those two guys are excellent depth pieces. And I believe that they will absolutely challenge and vie for both the third and second string running back position. I will get to that later in the video, how I see it shaking out and what it's going to be, at least initially. But they have the talent, and obviously they have put in the work in the weight room to make that happen. Moving this right along, let me go ahead and pull up some of the recruiting profiles for these guys here. Moving this right along, we have Brevan Dowell, which was a tremendous out of nowhere get for the Iowa Hawkeyes. This guy was obviously a strong athlete in the state of Iowa, but as far as football, was slightly under the radar. All of a sudden, he got onto the radar, and it turned into an Iowa State battle for his commitment. I mean, this kid, and I said this when I did his recruiting analysis commitment video, has legitimate speed and is no joke. I believe he even ended up winning the 100-meter dash in the state of Iowa. 100-meter dash in the state of Iowa. You look at his recruiting rankings, and multiple services, the top 2 services, saw him as a damn near 4-star prospect, right on the cusp of being a 4-star prospect. And I believe that he would have ended up being a 4-star prospect had he been able to play more of his senior season, but unfortunately he got injured. So this is why I say that this was an out of nowhere get, because there's always the initial rankings that come out. And he was not one of the guys that every year Iowa has anywhere from 3 to 5 in-state prospects that are offerable guys, if not fully offered guys. And then I can't remember when, I think it was after spring, and he ended up obviously taking an official visit and choosing the Iowa Hawkeyes. His official visit looks like it was 6/23, but still, relatively speaking, it was late in the process. And again, the point still stands. Iowa was tremendously fortunate for a Iowa kid at the running back position that possesses this sort of athleticism to sprout up. Okay. Make no mistake. The state of Iowa has definitely, and I have documented this in numerous videos, the state of Iowa has improved immensely in its production of Division I football talent, specifically Division I FBS Power 4 level talent. Regardless of that, it is not every year or every 2 years that Iowa produces a kid at the running back position that runs a sub 11-second 100-meter dash, and he happens to play running back. Okay. The last couple of running backs, just to tell you how rare this is, there was a kid that went to Southeast Polk, Abu Sama. Iowa did not offer him. I believe it was largely in part to them already having their commits at the running back position. And plus, Iowa, I think, really saw him as a DB rather than a running back. And the last one that I can think of would be a Gavin Williams, maybe Adam Rob. I mean, and even Adam Robinson wasn't a 4-star guy. You know, these guys were more like 2-star guys out of the Des Moines area. Okay. I think Gavin Williams was the other. He played for Dowling. But you guys get my point. It's not every year that Iowa produces a kid of this talent, speed, and athleticism at the running back position. It's similar to the wide receiver position. Now, they still do better than they used to, the state does, but comparatively, it's not like every year there's multiple guys at the position that are power forward level quality. So this was a tremendous get. He had offers from Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Minnesota, and Iowa secured his commitment. I really, really like this kid's talent. I think he's got a bright future for Iowa if he can stay healthy. Again, he reminds me of a Brandon Weegar, a more athletic, shifty running back. But he does have good size at 6 foot, 185 pounds. So in that way, he's unique because as I was talking about with Terrell Washington Jr., that's more in line with the, 5'7" to 5'10" guys. Okay. 6 foot at the running back position ain't bad at all. The second guy that Iowa landed was Xavier Williams out of the state of Indiana. And the whole recruiting cycle, what every publication was saying is that Iowa got their sugar and spice, their salt and vinegar or salt and pepper, their yin and yang. They got the bruising, big-bodied, 6'1", 220 pounds coming out of high school running back in Xavier Williams, and the speedster under 200-pound, under 11-second, 100-meter dash running back, Brevan Dowell. So I love, and I said this in the recruiting videos I did for these guys and talking about this class, I love what Liddell Betts was able to do with this class at the running back position and bringing two guys that bring their own unique, different skill set or differentiating skill set. And as you guys can see here, he was considered a mid to high 3-star prospect. He wasn't rated as highly as Brevan Dowell, but he still had some nice ratings. Before we get to the veterans and discussing kind of what I see for this group, I want to show you guys the weights. So Terrell Washington Jr. is up to 206 pounds. They have him at 5'11". I thought he was 5'8", 5'9". So 5'11" is not bad. That is, again, more in that Brandon Weegar range, 5'10". So 206 pounds, I think, is the weight that he should play at. Maybe 210 to start the season. If he can get to 210, that wouldn't be bad. Then you start risking some of the shiftiness that he has, but not bad. I mean, Josiah Patterson is still at 195, and he's in year 3. And I'm going to get to him in a moment. And then we have Kamari Moulton, trying to find him. Devin Hilson, of course, is now a DB. He's doing well at the DB position. Brevan Dowell, 200 pounds, 6 foot, 200 pounds, which is good. I think, again, similar to Terrell Washington Jr., his goal should be 205 to 210. Xavier Williams, 5'10", so he's actually shorter than what his recruiting profile says, 230 pounds. I personally think that that's probably the max that he can be. So, and I think that the Iowa coaching staff would agree. They, from this point on, because he obviously has no issues packing on weight, as is the case with a lot of running backs. I mean, you see there's a lot of running backs that once they're done playing football, they totally plummet because they have no problem adding weight. So the goal, I think, at this point for Xavier Williams will be to make most of that weight muscle rather than fat, because a lot of people mistake that these weight gains are pure muscle gains. They're not. It takes a long time to gain pure muscle mass. Okay. Kamari Moulton, it lists him at 197. I'm going to see if I can find the weight gain article. So here we go, guys. Takeaways from Hawkeye's updated weights for the 2024 season. Okay. Over the weekend, the Iowa football website released updated weights. This is always something that fans and media look forward to seeing. And so here we go. Caleb Johnson is listed at 6 foot, 222 pounds, but is now 3 pounds heavier at 225. So they miswrote that. Caleb Johnson was listed at 225 or 222, but now he's 225. He looks bigger because of his broad shoulders, which I would agree with that. And I'm surprised he's only 6 foot. To me, he looks more like 6'2". But maybe they measure people without their shoes. So, but even without shoes on the field, he looks like he's a legit 6'2", 6'3". LeShay Williams went from 208 to 214 pounds as he anticipates carrying the ball a lot. And so this is what I was saying. To me, this should be the goal because LeShay Williams is more in line with a Brevan Dowell. This should be the goal for Terrell Washington Jr. and Kamari Moulton. Definitely Kamari Moulton. Terrell Washington Jr., I would say 205 to 210 is okay. I think Brevan Dowell could get to this weight. But for Brevan Dowell and Kamari Moulton, rather than Terrell Washington Jr., it's somewhere, I would say their weight range would be 210 to 220 would be their weight range at their peak. Okay. Probably closer on the 210 side. Anywhere in between that is fine. Even with Johnson back on the field, Josiah Patterson wanted to improve his speed. And as it appears, as he went down to 195 pounds, as he was 204 pounds last season. Okay. One of the biggest changes in the room was Kamari Moulton. And again, that's why I keep telling you guys, it all depends on your makeup. Okay. It's if the sweet spot is finding the most weight that you can carry without losing any or minimal amount of speed, explosion, and shiftiness. That is the science of strength and conditioning. The rising second-year running back, Kamari Moulton, looks to be in the mix for the Hawkeyes this year after showing flashes in 2023 as a true freshman. He is up from 185 to 197 pounds, LBs, as he offers a bit of speed and open field running ability along with some improved power between the tackles. We'll talk about the incoming freshman later, but Xavier Williams is listed at 5'10", 230 pounds. That's a classic Big Ten running back. So that is that. Let me wrap up here talking about the veterans of this group, Josiah Patterson, Caleb Johnson, and LeShay Williams. Okay. Let's start with LeShay Williams. He is, in my estimation, the #1 running back. That was not always so. Caleb Johnson, a lot of people thought that he was going to take a massive, including myself, a massive step forward in year 2. I thought that Caleb Johnson was one of the most talented, physically gifted running backs that Iowa has had in a long time, and I still feel that way. But he was hampered last year by injury. And the running back position is tremendously a momentum, feel, and settling in position. There's few running backs. And if you do have this skill, it's definitely very helpful, but there's very few running backs that have the skill of not needing tons of reps in order to settle in to a groove. Okay. Most running backs need to touch the ball a few times at the very least to get going. Okay. He is the number one. And I've always really liked LeShay Williams. I don't think that he is a tremendously physically gifted tailback, but he has enough athleticism and enough size. He is a classic Iowa recruit. You know, he doesn't have massively amazing intangibles per se, but he has enough. But he has a great work ethic. He's a good teammate. And his number one skill thus far has been his ability to stay healthy. This guy has missed very little time, if at all, for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So he definitely is the number one running back coming into this season. Now, that, of course, can change as the season goes on, but I would rate LeShay Williams as a top 5 to 10 running back with the ability to be even better in his final year as a Hawkeye in the Big Ten. And I think that should be the goal. He said that he wants to have a 1,000-yard season. The goal for LeShay Williams at this point should be to be a top 5 running back. This is his recruiting profile. He comes from Oak Hill, Illinois, or Oaklawn, Illinois. He was at 86. His composite was actually pretty good with an 87.19, which isn't bad at all. You know, being a top 750 prospect is actually pretty good. So I'm excited to see what he can do. You know, Iowa, he is a classic Iowa recruit. Develop, improve, and hopefully it all accumulates and he has a massive breakout season. And I'm really excited, and I said I would come back to this. I'm really excited to see if the inclusion of Tim Lester to this Iowa coaching staff will enable LeShay Williams even more so to have a stellar season. I mean, obviously, I hope that that's the case for all the players, but as you know, LeShay Williams, if there's anybody who's earned it, it is him. So to me, anything really is possible for this guy given the new changes. As long as he can stay healthy, there's a lot to like. Caleb Johnson, I'm going to pull up his recruiting profile because I think it's worth noting. Caleb Johnson, I think, is the most gifted, physically gifted running back that the Iowa Hawkeyes have on the roster outside of Brevan Dowell, and probably even more so than Brevan Dowell. Okay. The guy is, I know it says that he's only 6 foot, but I think he is more like 6'1", 6'2". He's got tremendous straight line speed. He's got long striding legs. And when he's gone, he's gone. He did take a step back last year, obviously, which was too bad. He just was never able to settle in after the injuries. But hopefully with the off season to recover, we can see an even better Caleb Johnson from what we saw in his freshman year as an Iowa Hawkeye. So this is Caleb Johnson. On 3 had him as a 4-star running back. They had him as the 17th best running back in the class. And yes, guys, he had legit offers. Okay. I mean, he was considered a 4-star by 2 of the recruiting services. This, as I said, this is the best running back that Iowa has recruited in a long time. And I said that even when they landed him a few years back when I was first starting this YouTube channel. I think that he is more in line with the 6'2", 6'1", 6'2" side of things. But either way, he just has a tremendous physique. He's got broad shoulders. He's got thick legs. The guy has the intangibles. And again, in line with LeShay Williams, I'm very hopeful to see what this guy is capable of under Tim Lester. Okay. So he will be coming in as a 2. I'm going to circle back to how I see this playing out throughout the season, but suffice it to say, he will come in as the number 2 running back with the chance to be like a 1B with LeShay Williams. In all reality, that really is more so what it is because of the talent level of Caleb Johnson. As long as he is healthy, he is more like a 1B, because when LeShay Williams won that starting position by staying healthy, it really took some time because the coaches know how talented Caleb Johnson is, but he just kept getting injured and he could not stay on the field consistently enough last year. So there is still a ton of confidence in Caleb Johnson. Okay. In other words, to me, LeShay Williams did not win that position per se because he had this spectacular season and was just running all over the field and had multiple 100-yard games. It was perhaps partially that, but it was more so the best ability is availability type of thing. Let's look at Iowa football, ESPN. Let's check out the stats from last year. So that's Caleb Johnson. The other veteran is Josiah Patterson, and I'm going to show you guys his recruiting profile. He was much in the same vein as Caleb Johnson, which is why Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington Jr. got reps, is because of the injuries to Caleb Johnson and Josiah Patterson. Last year, you guys can see LeShay Williams had 821 yards rushing, averaging 4.8 yards a rush. Okay, which is that's not bad. If he could get closer to, if he could get to 5, that would be really nice. So Josiah Patterson again showed flashes as a freshman. Okay. I said in his recruiting video that he obviously has talent because there were a lot of major schools that offered him scholarships. Now, were they all committable scholarship offers? Maybe not. And yes, he did go to one of the better high schools in the entire country in the state of Florida. Okay. Deerfield Beach. But he had some major offers nonetheless. The talent is definitely there. And we saw flashes of his smooth, patient running style as a true freshman. I think, obviously he's going to receive reps. And if he does well with those reps, he'll receive more reps. He's definitely coming in as a 3, being pushed by Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington Jr., but I still do think that he has an edge just from what we saw last year. Hopefully this weight cut will help him and he can have his speed increased. Okay. I have always loved his patient running style, and he's a very smooth runner with great vision. Okay. And that cannot be undersold. Having great vision as a running back is one of the biggest skill sets that you can have. So his major chance will be when LeShay Williams graduates, but you guys never know what can happen. Honestly, the season is unpredictable. I remember doing this last year, talking about, what types of seasons A, B, and C needed to have for Iowa to be successful. And then, of course, Luke LeShay goes down. Cade McNamara goes down. You never know what can happen. You never know who is going to go down and who's going to be called upon. All I know is that the talent is there for Josiah Patterson. I want to show you guys. He had 206 yards last year. I want to show you guys his recruiting profile so you guys can see the offers that he had. Caleb Johnson had some good offers, but honestly, Josiah Patterson had better offers. So, Caleb Johnson, Kentucky, Michigan State, West Virginia, Iowa State. I mean, he had some good offers too. Don't get me wrong. Okay. He definitely did. But Josiah he probably had more committable offers. But Josiah had some nice offers too. Okay. And at one time, he was seen as a high 3-star, low 4-star running back. But again, I believe he got injured his senior season or COVID shortened his season. So there wasn't tape and they weren't able to properly grade him. But look at this, guys. And again, yes, going to Deerfield Beach helps. He had offers from Texas A&M, Alabama, Penn State, Michigan. The only guy on Iowa's roster that has a better offer sheet would be Xavier Wampa. Oregon, Miami, Tennessee, Auburn, Missouri, Florida, Ole Miss, Florida State, Arkansas, Nebraska, Pittsburgh. I mean, he had offers from the entire SEC, the entire South. So the skill is there. The skill is there. All right, guys, just to wrap this up, I think I've done a really nice, thorough running back preview. What I expect, okay, I've already alluded to most of it. The number one running back going into the year is LeShay Williams. I think it's more akin to a 1A, 1B with him and Caleb Johnson. Iowa obviously has a running back by committee approach. They will definitely go with the hot hand, but if they usually have a clear one going into the game. But that is subject to change based on how the game is going. Okay. Football has changed, and there's nothing more evident than the use of the running back in college football. When I was thinking about this video and thinking of things to say, usually I do this off the cuff, but things change, and yes, they have changed for the running back position, but things stay the same. Okay. The running back position is still very important. How they're utilized has evolved slightly, but it's still a very important position. And you have to have a run game. And Iowa is definitely one of those schools that still absolutely 1000% utilizes their running backs. Unfortunately, we have not had a stellar run game collectively in a couple of years. I would say the last time that Iowa had a really nice season running the football would have been Tyler Goodson's sophomore or junior season, because I can't remember if he left Iowa early. I think he did. I think it was his second season. And then he took a step back, and the offense took a step back the following year. And then before that, LaShawn Daniels, Akram Wadley, Derek Mitchell Jr., Jordan Kanziri, the CJ Beathard years had a really, really, really nice run game. And then before that, I would say the Ricky Stanzi, the Adam Robinson, Jewel Hampton, Brandon Weegar. Okay. But it's been a few years since we have had a nice run game. And the thing is that ultimately, if you run the football as Iowa does, and of course, some of it is up to the play calling, some of it is up to the scheme, some of it is up to the offensive line. Some of it is up to the quarterback's ability to open it up through the pass. Although Iowa sets up the pass with the run. But if you run the football as Iowa does, you should be more consistent at running the ball year in, year out, like Wisconsin was under Paul Chryst and Brett Bielema and Barry Alvarez. Okay. I mean, that is the epitome of being able to run the football. What we've seen from Michigan in the last couple of years under Jim Harbaugh, that is what you should shoot for. Maybe not every year, but approaching that. I think Iowa's running back room is as talented as any of the rooms in the entire Big Ten. Honestly, I legitimately think that. They have experience, they have talent, they have athleticism, they have size. It's all there. Okay. Do they have a clear, shoot, what's his name for who went to Penn State? Who was drafted by the New York Giants. I'm blanking on his name, but do they have, some of the like who Michigan had last year? No, not per se, not off of the production that we've seen. So Penn State has Nick Singleton, Noah Cain. I don't know if those guys are there, but obviously I'm thinking Saquon Barkley. That's who I'm thinking of. And then last year, I'm going to pull up Michigan's running backs real quick. So does Iowa have that like 100%? Blake Corum going into next year, a workhorse that is renowned and proven? Not quite. It's close. I mean, LeShay Williams had a decent 100-yard year last year. But what you're looking for in a workhorse is a guy that can either eclipse 1,000 yards or is really balanced. They have, close to 1,000 yards, if not 1,000 yards, with 5 to 10 tubs, if not more. That's what you're looking for. Okay. But they have the pieces. I think they have guys that can catch the ball in the backfield. They have guys that can break away straight line. They have guys that can ground and pound. The talent is there. If I had to rate Iowa's running back room in the whole Big Ten, I'd say it's top 5. So the talent is there. The third running back, or the 1B is going to be Caleb Johnson. Very talented, has the potential to, I wouldn't be surprised if, well, I would be, to be honest, but based off of the talent, all things being equal, and if these guys are able to stay healthy, both guys can have minimum 800 yards. If that happened, it would be a really, really nice season for the offense and for the run game. The third guy, Josiah Patterson, he's going to get his touches. And then, we'll see after that. I think it's Iowa will definitely try to get Trell Washington involved due to him being a playmaker. They'll get him in there for some reps. I think the guy that's probably the odd man out is Kamari Moulton. He's probably competing the most with Josiah Patterson for that pure third running back position. And we'll see what happens. Okay, but the pieces are there. I really like this group. I think it's a very undervalued group in the Big Ten. I think a lot of people are looking past the running back room for Iowa because of how bad the offense has been as a whole. Okay. Just one final look at the stats. Terrell Washington Jr. had 9 carries for 50 yards. Let's look at his other stats. It looks like he didn't log any receptions, but he had a nice 5.6 average, which of course, the less carries you have and the more sporadic you come in, defenses aren't used to your running style per se. So, you have, I would say, more of a chance to spring larger runs off of. But based off of last year, Kamari Moulton for the Iowa Hawkeyes was seen slightly ahead of Terrell Washington Jr. Okay. And again, as I said, to me, he is seen more in line with as a pure running back. And so he's in competition more so for that third pure running back getting reps at the running back position. Terrell Washington Jr. will be used in sets that have that RPO run pass option, if not a full-blown passing down, because he is a very talented, skilled player. And Iowa would be smart to get him on the field. Will they? We'll see. But I mean, you guys can see he had 27 carries for 93 yards. I mean, he had nearly, what is that? 18, 9 times 3 is 27. He had 3 times the carry as Terrell Washington Jr. Okay. So I really like this group, guys. We're going to wrap this up. Let me know what you guys think about the running back group. I really believe that this is an undervalued group. People are sleeping on them. A lot of this is going to depend on the improvement of the offensive line and Tim Lester. I fully acknowledge that. But as far as the running back room goes, the talent is there. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to smash that subscribe button at the very least. Like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. Facts or feelings, because your feelings just still matter. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.